Last week in the Premier League, there was a lot of shock results. Let's hope that this game week is a bit easier to predict. If you're new to Premier League Predictor, then the rules are on the screen right now. This is the series where I take on you guys in predicting the Premier League results. Let's see how I got on last week. As you can see, I got a total of 7 points last week, but there were a couple of fixtures that were particularly hard to predict. For example, Forest beating Liverpool was something none of us saw coming. And Southampton getting a point at Arsenal was again something we didn't see coming at all. And I think you're going to realise that me getting 7 points actually wasn't that bad for last week, because you guys did quite a bit worse. Because if we look at the Game Week 13 subscribers results table, you can see in first place is me, Annie and Stuyben, all of which got 7 points with 1 correct score and 2 correct results. Marbles and Moore got 5 points in second. Jostle and Timo got 4 points. And then you got Wilf and Ben, who, by the way, is at the bottom for the second week in a row, are, out of the scoring points, unfortunately. But yeah, it wasn't a high scoring week whatsoever. Hopefully, if you get your predictions in before the first game kicks off this weekend, we'll have a bit more of a chance of getting a decent result. There are some tasty fixtures on the card this week. Liverpool versus Leeds looks like a much tighter game than you'd anticipate. Brighton welcome back their old manager in the form of Chelsea's Graham Potter. And also, looking along that list, another tidy fixture. I reckon United West Ham might be a bit spicy. It does look like a week that should be quite easy to predict, but we thought about the last game week that way, and we all got pretty much no points. Leicester have had a change of form in the last couple of weeks with a draw and 2 wins, and they're looking like they're getting back on track. However, it's going to be a loss this week, surely. They got Manchester City, who are of course second in the league and have only lost 1 game in the last 6. So I highly anticipate that that's going to be the case going forward, is that the Man City are going to win this game quite convincingly. Yes, Leicester have improved recently, but it's Manchester City. They're completely different gravy. I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward away win here. I've gone for 3-0. You can just expect the likes of De Bruyne, who was rested in midweek during the Champions League games, and Haaland as well, only played about half a game, I believe, so they're going to be rested, ready for this Premier League tie, and 3 points are going back to the City ground 100%. Both Bournemouth and Spurs have had back-to-back defeats in their last 2 games, but it's safe to say that prior to that, Spurs' form was better than Bournemouth's. I think the Spurs do need to get themselves some points on the board this weekend, because if they don't, they are putting themselves at risk out of dropping out the top 4. You've currently got Chelsea on 21 points, you've got Newcastle on 21 points that are currently sat in 4th as well, and a win for Manchester United will put them level on points with Spurs this week. So they are getting a little bit risky. They could drop out of the top 4 if they don't win this game. I think they will win this game. It's going to be tight. I think that Spurs are a little lacklustre at the moment, aren't quite providing the goal scoring that we've become accustomed to with Son and Kane, etc. But I think they'll probably have enough to get past the Bournemouth side that are currently sat in 14th in the table. I've gone for a 1-0 win to Spurs. I just think that it'll be slightly tight, but they'll get it over the line eventually. It's a hard one. They're a hard team to predict at the moment with how up and down their form's been. Bloody ice cream van going past. Wolves have only picked up 3 points out of a possible 18 from their last 6 games, which is frankly embarrassing. Brentford, of course, had a very good start to the season, but have dropped off massively, only winning 1 of their last 6 games and only getting 2 draws in there as well. Where do I see this one going? Well, I personally think Brentford have got what it takes to get over the line. And they've got this guy called Tony, who is 100% trying to make a good impression at the moment, because he wants that sort of, outsider spot on the plane to the World Cup in Qatar in a couple of weeks' time. So I think Tony's going to be, pulling out all the stocks and trying his hardest, as will a lot of the other Brentford players, trying to get a good run of results before we have this international break. I've gone for a pretty close fixture, but I've gone for 2-1 to Brentford. I think that Wolves are just a shell of a team this year, only performing really once in the last 6 games. Unconvincing every time I've watched them play highlights-wise, so I think it's going to be straightforward for Brentford with a win here, 2-1. Now, you could argue that this is the biggest fixture of the weekend. You've got Graham Potter returning to Brighton with his new Chelsea side. I think this will be quite an interesting one. I think it's going to be a very tight game. Brighton obviously haven't had a great run of form recently, but I think there'll be a little bit more fire in the belly for this game because they're going up against their old manager. Chelsea, on the other hand, are doing reasonably well. They've actually not lost in the last 6 games, having won 4 of them. 2 draws recently, one of which was against Manchester United, so that's a bit understandable, really. That was a very tight game. You could argue, however, that Manchester United should have won it. You know, offsides were given when the play. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to get bitter about it. Anyway, back to the Brighton-Chelsea game. I think this will be very close, high-scoring game, but I am thinking that Chelsea are probably going to come away as winners. Brighton will have a bit of fight in them, but I don't think they're going to have enough to see off this Chelsea side. I've gone for 3-2 to Chelsea. I think that Graham Potter coming back to his old stomping ground will be a weird experience for him, but he's been around the clubs. He knows what he's doing, and I don't think it will phase the result here. Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Now, Crystal Palace out of the two have the better form over the last 6 games, but I think that it's going to be quite a tight affair. I've actually put this as my board draw. I've gone for 0-0. I don't think there's much in these two teams at the moment, and it's going to be a bottom of the table kind of clash, really. Crystal Palace, with their recent form, find themselves 1 point ahead of Southampton, but it is just 1 point. That is how close the bottom of the table is right now, by the way. Brighton are in 9th place with 15 points, and Leicester in 17th with 11. That's 4 points between 9th place and 17th. It's still very tight down there. So, yeah, there's not much between these teams at all, which is why I've gone with the board draw. 2 teams where there is a massive golfing class is Newcastle United and Aston Villa. Let's face it, Newcastle have been great recently. They've actually won 4 out of their last 6 games, having only drawn the other 2. They are incredibly impressive right now, and I think they're going to push on and really cement themselves as a top 4 team. And people say, oh, you know, Newcastle have got all this money, they're buying fame, they're buying these opportunities, they're buying the league, whatever it might be. I actually don't think they are. I think they've invested very carefully and they've bought players very carefully as well. It's a strange one. It's people just assuming that they're going to do a Chelsea, that they're going to do a Man City from the past, but they're not. They're kind of going the right way about it, and I kind of want to get behind it. I'm quite enjoying watching Newcastle at the moment. They're one of those teams that I do put on the TV if they are on. And yeah, I think they'll get the win again here against Villa. Villa had a little bit of a spurt of energy in the last game because obviously Gerrard left. But, you know, they got a win there. They look like a completely different side. But I assume that's just a bit of a bounce back from a couple of bad results. Newcastle aren't a team they're going to be able to do that against. I think they're going to be far too convincing. I've gone for 3-0 to Newcastle at home in this fixture. And I don't think I can be wrong there. I think I'm at least getting a point for this game. Another manager that has come under a bit of scrutiny recently is Lampard, obviously Gerrard's partner in the midfield for England back in his playing day. He had 3 losses in a row, but it was followed up by a win more recently for Everton. They're up against Fulham, who are currently sat 7th in the Premier League, above Liverpool and above West Ham. I would not have predicted that, and above, well above Leicester. I wouldn't have predicted that at the start of the season. So, you know what? Fulham have massively outdone themselves here. They've actually won 2 out of their last 3 games as well. I think this will be a very tight match, but I'm actually giving it to Fulham. I'm giving them the win 2-1. They are the home team, which does play into a bit of a factor, but I also think Everton's performance in their last game was a bit of a fluke compared to previous results over the last 4 fixtures. So I'm going to go with Fulham. I just have this feeling that they're going to sit around the top half of the table for a lot longer than we're anticipating. And the fact they're above Liverpool at the moment makes me quite happy, so I'd quite like them to stay there. So I've gone for 2-1, and I'm hoping that their position in the league doesn't change. Speaking of Liverpool, I'm making this prediction before they play in their Champions League fixture this evening. I'm recording this on the Wednesday afternoon. So, what do I think is going to happen here? Liverpool versus Leeds. You know, Liverpool could come out in the Champions League and dominate and be amazing, but they could also not. They have just lost their last game to bottom of the league. So, forgive me when I make a prediction that Leeds might get something out of this game. I've actually gone for a draw. I've gone for 2-2. I don't really know why, but I've gone for it. I just feel like Liverpool are just all over the shop this season. It's a season where they need to rebuild a little bit. Their midfield is in tatters, it's old, it's massively dated, and as a result of that, they're really struggling. Mane leaving in the summer hasn't really been filled in because people like Diaz and stuff who were already there and on the periphery still need to be on the periphery for a year or so. Nunez has come in and is starting to get in the goals, so there's a chance that he could start to make a proper impact on the Premier League, but I do think that he's a little bit hit and miss because you don't know what kind of attitude and what kind of mindset you're going to get from Darwin Nunez at the moment. But yeah, I've actually gone for 2-2. Liverpool Leeds. I think that Leeds are going to nick it. I think they're going to get a point, and it'll just add to what has been a really poor start for Liverpool this season. They want the World Cup. They want the World Cup to come soon and to get a January transfer window in them to maybe salvage something from this season. A team that do not want the World Cup, they do not want the World Cup to happen whatsoever, is Arsenal. Arsenal are flying right now. They've got 4 wins and a draw in their last 5 games, and they're coming up against Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest got a win in their last match against Liverpool, but I don't think that's going to make a difference to this result. Arsenal and Liverpool are 2 different teams this year, completely different beasts. And Arsenal are the top dogs. I don't see City overtaking them before this international break comes in 3 fixtures' time, including this fixture. So we've got this fixture and then 2 more Premier League predictors, and then it's the World Cup, which reminds me I need to get my World Cup predictor game sorted. I'm thinking of something to do on the channel, don't worry. But I don't see Arsenal. I don't see them losing. I don't see them dropping points. Like, their team's incredible at the moment. They're going to thrash Nottingham Forest. I put 5-0. 5-0 at home. And also, Arsenal being at home is massive for them this season. That stadium seems like a completely different atmosphere. It's not negative. It's massively positive. Some might say they are in their prime. I'm not saying that prime hydration is the reason that they are winning, but it could be. Final game of the weekend sees Manchester United versus West Ham. Now, my prediction here might be massively swayed depending on how these 2 teams perform in Europe this week. Manchester United have been shocking in Europe this season. Really underwhelming performances. They've got wins here and there, but massively underwhelming performances. United obviously got the draw against Chelsea, which was a decent result, but I think could have been potentially a win. I personally think they deserved a win in my opinion, but there you go. West Ham are on the rise up the Premier League. They've won 3 out of the last 6 and got 2 losses and 1 draw. But it's definitely a change of form since the start of their season, so they are climbing the Premier League. They're currently sat in 10th, which again, if they get a win, they'll be 8th. You know, it's that tight at the Premier League at this point of the season because teams are still very close. Point gaps haven't really started to open up yet. But for me, Manchester United get the win here. If they win this game, there's a high chance, if Newcastle or Chelsea or Spurs do drop points this week, that United could go top 4 or at least top 5. So I've got high anticipations for Manchester United at the moment. I feel like they're doing well in the Premier League, and when they do play in the league, they perform well. Ronaldo's back training with the squad following his little tantrum. Hopefully Erik ten Hag has got the team rallied around Ronaldo and making him, feel welcome again, and hopefully he can get back to performing as well. I think Ronaldo would arguably be a great kind of player to play up against West Ham. I don't think pace is what you need against West Ham. It's someone who's going to battle physically, and Ronaldo can definitely do that. So fingers crossed he does get to play. I've put 3-1 to Manchester United in this fixture. And yeah, I think just being at home at Old Trafford, hopefully having a decent game in Europe this week against Sheriff, I think it is. I don't even know who we're playing against, but it's some low side that we should walk through, but I bet we struggle with. But yeah, I feel like if United have a decent week in Europe and then go there on Sunday and get a result, they could be looking pretty good for a top 4 finish this season. So here's a review of my Game Week 14 Matt Ayres predictions for the Premier League this weekend. Leicester are going to lose 3-0 at home to Manchester City. Bournemouth are going to lose 1-0 to Spurs. Brentford are going to win 2-1 at home to Wolves. Brighton versus Chelsea is going to end in a 3-2 away win. The bore draw of the week goes to Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Newcastle are going to win 3-0 against Aston Villa. Fulham to win 2-1 against Everton. Liverpool and Leeds, the surprise result of the weekend is going to be a 2-2 draw. Arsenal are going to steamroll through Nottingham Forest 5-0. And Manchester United are going to win at home 3-1 to West Ham. Remember guys, if you want to get yourselves on our leaderboard next week, get your predictions in the comments right now before that Manchester City-Leicester game kicks off, to make sure that you are available to get your points in and to climb that leaderboard. I'm looking at you, Ben. You got 2 points the last 2 weeks. It makes it easier for me to edit the images, admittedly, because I don't have to change the text, but come on, at least start trying. By the way, I know Ben in real life. I'm not having a go at a random person on the internet, and that makes it okay. That's it for this video. If you've enjoyed, please hit a massive thumbs up on it, because it does help my videos go further on YouTube. Making sure you are subscribed as well also helps. Get the notification bell on so you know when videos go live. I've got a video going up in the next 4 days, which is player picks on FIFA, and I get one of the best cards in the game. So I'm very happy about that video going up soon once it's edited and stuff. But anyway, back to this video. Please support it, because the more you guys support it, the further it goes, the more likely we're to become a channel on YouTube that people actually recognise, and that's what I really want to do. That's it for this video though. I will see you guys in the next one.